Making and curing specimens for strength tests in accordance with EN 12390 Part 2. This training video has been produced by the Institute of Concrete Technology in partnership with Brett Concrete, Delman Readymix, GCP Applied Technologies, Hansen, LKAB, the MPA and BRMCA, QSRMC, Seeker, Talent Concrete Training, Tarmac, and Testing and Consultancy Services. EN 12390 Part 2 describes the methods of manufacturing cube, cylinder, and prism specimens of varying sizes. Only the manufacture of a 100 mm cube specimen will be demonstrated in this video. Always wear the appropriate personal protective equipment when carrying out any testing with concrete. This includes safety glasses, protective clothing, gloves, and safety boots. Ensure that you have all the necessary equipment available and that it is clean and serviceable. The smallest dimension of the mould must be at least 3.5 times the maximum nominal size of the coarse aggregate in the concrete. The concrete sample must be obtained in accordance with EN 12350 Part 1, and before testing, the sample must be thoroughly remixed. Prior to use, the mould should be clean and the inner surface should be covered with a thin coating of release agent. The mould is filled in as many layers as necessary to achieve full compaction, depending on the consistence of the concrete. When using self-compacting concrete, the mould should be filled in one layer with no additional compaction. Using a scoop, place the concrete in the mould, distributing it evenly in the mould. For the first layer, fill the mould with the appropriate quantity of concrete. Tamp the layer at least 25 times uniformly across the cross-section. Compact the layer throughout its depth, but taking care not to damage the bottom of the mould. Note the number of tamps used. After compacting the layer, tap the outsides of the mould smartly with the mallet to close any holes left by the compacting bar and to release any large air bubbles that may have been trapped. For each of the subsequent layers, fill the mould with the appropriate quantity of concrete. Tamp each of the layers at least 25 times, uniformly over the cross-section. Compact each layer throughout its depth, but taking care not to penetrate significantly the previous layer. Note the number of tamps used. After compacting each layer, tap the outsides of the mould smartly with the mallet to close any holes left by tamping and to release any large air bubbles that may have been trapped. After completing the final layer, remove any excess concrete above the upper edge of the mould using a steel trowel or float and carefully level the surface. After finishing, mark the cube to positively identify the concrete it represents without damaging the specimen. Immediately provide protection to the specimen to prevent moisture loss and move the specimen to a place of storage for initial curing. Specimens should be stored in their moulds for at least 16 hours, but no longer than 3 days. Protected from shock, vibration and dehydration, and at a temperature of between 15 degrees Celsius and 25 degrees Celsius. The following information must be reported on completion of the test. Reference to the standard EN 12390 Part 2. Identification of the test sample. The date and time of making the specimens. The method of compacting the concrete in the moulds, and, in the case of hand compaction, the number of strokes. The details of the storage of specimens prior to demoulding including the duration and conditions, the method of curing specimens after demoulding and during transportation, if appropriate, giving the temperature range and the duration of curing, any deviation from the standard method of making and curing the specimens, and a declaration by the person technically responsible that the specimens were prepared in accordance with the standard, except as noted above. The following information may also be reported on completion of the test if required: the temperature of the remixed concrete, and the condition of the specimens on receipt for curing if appropriate. For further information on the ICT's Concrete Field Testing Technician Certification Scheme, please visit our website